This game's control scheme is kind of weird. This game's control scheme is kind of weird. You know, a lot of people don't like touch controls. In today's day and age, honestly, I'm with them. Capacitive touchscreens, mobile gaming, and on-screen controls all feel weird and unnatural, but it wasn't always like that. In 2007, Nintendo released a follow-up game to their 2003 game, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, which, sure, is looked back on fondly these days, but back then was extremely divisive in no small part due to its cartoony, cel-shaded art style. That follow-up was named The Legend of Zelda: Phantom Hourglass for the Nintendo DS. And it was also extremely divisive because it abandoned traditional controls in favor of touch controls. Who's making these decisions? Want to see me do it again? For a bit of background, Phantom Hourglass is a bit of a special one to me. It was my first ever Zelda game. It wasn't supposed to be. For Christmas of 2007, I asked my grandma for a copy of Sonic Rush Adventure, but the game featured an Australian character who said the word bugger once or twice, which in the UK is considered a swear word, making the game have a PEGI rating of 12+, which led to me being very confused on Christmas morning when Sonic was suddenly green and a human and named Zelda. I mean Link. But there was still a boat on the box, so it's not all bad, right? It's one of the few Zeldas that serve as a direct sequel, which I didn't know at the time, but I was a kid, cut me some slack, alongside games like Majora's Mask, Zelda 2, and later games like Spirit Tracks and Tears of the Kingdom. This game takes place after the events of a previous game. In this case, it's 2003's The Wind Waker. Same Link, same Zelda, Tetra, and some returning members of the supporting cast, like the Pirates and Beetle. It also doesn't repeat any of the stock standard Zelda plotlines, which is good. Outside of a handful of visual references, there's nothing plot relevant about things like Ganondorf, the Triforce, the Master Sword, the Kingdom of Hyrule, etc., etc. It's a nice breath of fresh air. Of course, being a kid, I didn't know about any of that anyway, so, you know. When looking back on this game and seeing what people think, the loudest voices are often the people that don't like this game. Their main complaints revolve around the touch controls and the Temple of the Ocean King, which we'll get to. To get things out of the way, yes, this game is controlled entirely on the touchscreen. There are a few buttons mapped to some shortcuts like opening the map or the menu, but you could very easily play this with no buttons at all. This is forced, by the way. There's no option to turn off the touchscreen controls unless you use a janky action replay code or a mod on an emulator. Sorry, couldn't have them spreading rumors about modifying Nintendo's intellectual property. We're not planning to sell this game again right now, by the way. You move Link by tapping and holding a direction on the touchscreen with this little fairy representing where your stylus is positioned. Don't you dare try and tell me you played this with your finger. Sketching lines, tapping on enemies, or drawing circles allows you to attack with your sword, and one of the big selling points was being able to doodle on a map that, when playing, is positioned on the top screen of the console. It's useful for writing notes, drawing directions, or telling people to subscribe to your YouTube channel. Who put that? And this, yeah, look, didn't go over well with some fans. I think an option to play the game with button controls would have been a good compromise, like how Skyward Sword HD does it, but I don't know. Maybe if the game ever gets a modern re-release. I don't see a lot of people talking about Phantom Hourglass these days. You'd think that it flew under the radar of a lot of people, but this is in the top 10 best-selling Zelda games of all time. It even outsold the original Wind Waker, but, you know, you do have to account for the fact that the DS was, well, the DS and everyone had one. For me, it was my gateway into the series. I love Zelda, and while it's not as prevalent as some other series that I enjoy, at least once a year I'll hyperfixate on it and binge through a bunch of the games. Sometimes it's the newer ones, sometimes it's the older ones, but very rarely will I take a trip down a Phantom Hourglass-shaped memory lane. I don't know why, but I was recently compelled to revisit the game, and I'm taking you with me, so sit back and relax. Booting up the game gives us a cinematic of seagulls flying past Tetra's ship from the Wind Waker, with Link on the prow looking out over the Great Sea. It's a really nice intro to the game, and looks great for an early DS title. Start a file, and the game opens on a recap of the events of the Wind Waker. The pirates find Link, Tetra is secretly Zelda, Link fights Ganondorf, they all lived happily ever after. There, I covered Wind Waker. Happy? The intro to the game is pretty endearing, honestly, with it being revealed that this recap is a series of paper cutouts by Nico, one of the members of Tetra's pirate crew. Tetra's fiery personality makes a return, along with the charming, over-the-top expressions from Wind Waker. They're sailing in search of new lands, and Nico is worried about recent disappearances of other ships in the area due to a haunted ghost ship. There's no such thing as ghosts. Oh my god, it's the ghost ship! Tetra jumps on board to get to the bottom of things and... without so much as a second thought, Link leaps into action, jumping overboard and grabbing onto the ghost ship, and then falls into the Great Sea. You have a vision of Tetra calling for Link to save her and then come to on a beach with a fairy overlooking you. This is Ciela. She quickly sympathizes with your issues and tells you to go visit her grandpa. We take control of Link and start to explore Mercay Island. Or is it Mercay Island? I don't know. There's not a whole lot on this side of the island. The bridge is out and the only path through to the other side is full of monsters and you haven't got anything to defend yourself with. You can vandalize a home, roll around a bit, but eventually you gotta go visit Oshus, or is it Oshus? He's a sweet old man with a big old staff and serves as a kinda sorta mentor for Link and Ciela. A lot of people really don't like the opening hour or so of a Zelda game. They say it's too handholdy, and like, I can see where they're coming from, but I always enjoy these slower paced introductions as they get you drawn into the world and its characters. It's somewhat of a guilty pleasure, I don't know. Your objective is to get to the other side of the island to meet a sea captain. To do that, you gotta get a sword. It's a pretty simple puzzle. Count all the palm trees around the beach and draw the number on the sign. Da-da-da-da! Now you can better commit property damage. One sword tutorial later, and you're off on your adventure. Go through the cave, solve a couple puzzles, and get searching for the captain. His boat is at the dock, but he's missing. Apparently, the owner of the milk bar knows more. The captain dashed out, off to a place called the Temple of the Ocean King, which is definitely not an ominous name for something that you'll keep coming back to. No, not at all. Sounds normal to me. The other guy at the bar warns you that the Temple of the Ocean King had a curse laid upon it long ago, which, I mean, it's a Zelda game. It's par for the course at this point. The owner and the patron tell you not to go, beg you not to go even. After all, Link is just a kid, and a cursed temple probably isn't the best place to send a young child that just wandered into a bar. The Temple of the Ocean King is a real old rickety-looking building full of ruins and skeletons. Talk about interior design! One of the skeletons warns you of enemies that couldn't be slain with a sword, which is probably nothing. And there's this strange hourglass looking thing at the top of the stairs. Stepping further inside brings us into the real belly of the beast. You spot a guy a little further in, Linebeck, the sea captain you're searching for. He's somehow been trapped in the temple. He gives you a heads up about the curse. It'll suck the life out of you. This is one of the defining features of the Temple of the Ocean King. Standing around on regular terrain will actively drain your hearts, but standing on these funky looking purple tiles called safe zones will protect you from that curse. Go figure. Free Linebeck, he bolts and chase after him. For someone who apparently sprained his ankle, he sure can run fast. I really like Linebeck as a character. He's pretty clearly inspired by Captain Jack Sparrow being this guy that thinks very highly of himself, that he rules the sea, etc. And when everyone else sees right through him for the scaredy cat he is, he doubles down rather than backing off. And it makes for some really entertaining moments between Ciela, Linebeck, and Link. Linebeck's on board to help us look for the ghost ship, as long as that means he gets a share of the supposed treasure on board. The guy is very motivated by the promise of treasure, but prefers to have other people with a bit more courage do the dirty work. He hands you a key, you grab a sea chart, and off you go. Oshus greets us and tells us that the sea chart contains a puzzle. Inspecting it and scratching it like a lottery ticket reveals a hidden symbol on one of the islands, giving us our destination. Hopping on Linebeck's ship, we set off, for the first time, for the Great Sea. Being a sequel to The Wind Waker, one of the things I haven't touched on yet is the idea of sailing through the ocean. Sailing on the King of Red Lions in Wind Waker is pretty okay from memory. You largely just have to steer and make sure the wind is behind you. In Phantom Hourglass though, with it being a touchscreen game, it's a little different. With the touchscreen, you draw a line on the sea chart and Linebeck will pilot the ship along that course. While sailing, touching the edge of the screen will move the camera around and you can do things like jump, which boats famously can do. It's honestly not bad, and I got used to it pretty quickly. It's a little difficult to readjust halfway through a journey as you have to stop and start from scratch each time you want to redraw your path, but it's honestly not a bad method of traversal. The ship's movement speed is a little slow, but nothing that actually impacted my enjoyment of the game. You can visit Beetle's shopship or Cannon Island, but eventually you make your way to the Isle of Ember, which is kind of the start of this game's regular gameplay loop. For most of the main points of this game, you get to an island, complete a little quest, go to a dungeon, beat a boss, get a MacGuffin, rinse and repeat. It's a pretty stock standard Zelda loop, but it's honestly not that bad, especially for the first game on a new console and the first game of this new control scheme. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know? On the Isle of Ember, you've got to rescue this fortune teller Astrid from a locked door. Ciela tells you to call out to her, which when I was a kid wasn't particularly clear. The game wants you to shout into the DS's microphone, which comes up a few times. Once you free her, you climb the volcano in a neat callback to Death Mountain. The game wants you to blow some candles out, so you do that and get into the Temple of Fire. Dungeons in Phantom Hourglass are pretty straightforward, honestly. Not a bad way. They're paced really well and the puzzles are fine. It's not too hard, but it's not stupid easy either. They strike a nice balance here in my opinion. If you've played any of the traditional Zelda games, you'll know exactly what to expect in here. Solve puzzles, fight enemies, halfway through the dungeon you get an item which helps you solve more puzzles, eventually finding your way to a boss that incorporates the use of that item which you beat, grab a heart container, that's it. This dungeon gives you the boomerang and a strange red fairy for beating it, which ends up being Leaf, the spirit of power. He was locked away alongside the Ocean King many years ago, but now that he's free, he can no longer feel the Ocean King's presence. He decides to join you to maybe figure out what happened to him. Astrid tells you that in order to find the ghost ship, you need 3 spirits: power, which you've got, wisdom, and courage, who you've yet to find. She tells you that she sees another clue for you in the Temple of the Ocean King, so back we go. Here's one of the big issues people have with the game. The Temple of the Ocean King serves as the backbone of your progression for better or for worse. Almost every time you complete a dungeon, you have to go back to it and do it again. And while the items that you get on your adventure do help with progression through the floors, it resets on each run, so you have to basically start from scratch every single time. I can totally understand why that would get on people's nerves. Personally though, I didn't hate it. Could it have been handled better? Probably, absolutely. But I think it serves as a cool way to have a tangible memento of the progress that you're making throughout your journey. So the temple sucks the life out of you. That's not great. Luckily, the weird freaky dude you fought earlier exploded into magical sand, which has powered up the mysterious hourglass at the back of the temple's entrance. Oshus tells you to get up and check it out, and when you do, it floats up towards you and is filled with that magical sand. This is the Phantom Hourglass. Oh my god! Having the Phantom Hourglass allows you to survive the temple's curse as long as the Sand of Hours remains in the top half of it. Just flip it over. Well, Linebeck has the same thought, but apparently it needs the light of the sun to restore its mystical power. Bummer. For a random old guy, Oshus sure knows a lot about the Temple of the Ocean King, and his name kinda sounds similar to the word ocean, and you know what, it's probably nothing. Entering the temple now gives us a little cutscene of the Phantom Hourglass being flipped over, and our timer begins. That's your time limit for how long you're able to walk around the temple. It freezes when you enter a safe zone or a cutscene, which is good, but it's still something that keeps the pressure up with each run. Heading down another floor also introduces us to a new enemy, Phantoms. Wonder where they got that name from. The Phantoms serve as your main adversaries in the Temple of the Ocean King. You can't defeat or harm them with your current loadout, and if they hit you, you lose time in the hourglass and are sent back to the start of the floor. You can observe their movement patterns on the top screen and see where they're looking, and they can't see you when you're in a safe zone, so I feel like it's pretty balanced. I'm not usually a fan of forced stealth segments in games, but the Temple of the Ocean King, in my opinion, ain't that bad. Heading through the temple, you can see and make note of things that will come back to aid you in subsequent runs. For example, cracked walls that you can come back to when you have access to bombs. Couple that with the fact that you'll get faster at the puzzles each time and eventually be able to skip a big chunk of them, and I don't think the repetition is as bad as some people make it out to be. Get the second sea chart and get the hell out of there. At this point, you also unlock ship customization. It's not really something that I messed around with too much in this playthrough, as I prefer the stock look of Linebeck's ship, but it's a cool option nonetheless and is a nice way to increase your boat's hearts on the open sea. There's a bunch of dust on the sea chart, so blow that away and you have your destination. A big tornado stops you from going directly north, and there's a bunch of rocks blocking you from passing through to the other side of the current part of the sea, so you've got to get yourself a cannon. Head over to Cannon Island, buy the cannon, and away you go. The cannon's controls are pretty straightforward, just tap on the touchscreen where you want to shoot and it'll do just that. You spot the ghost ship and immediately give chase but get lost in the fog, so it's back to square one. After exploring a different island and finding notes from an old wayfarer, you've now got the path through the fog. Once you're out, you can explore the Northwestern Sea a bit, get access to a fast travel feature from a big gold frog, or visit this guy, Zaz, who will become important later. But the main order of business is getting to the Isle of Gust and getting through the Temple of Wind. This dungeon gives you the bombs, which you use to beat up another boss that uses both screens of the DS pretty effectively. You get some more magic sand and rescue the Spirit of Wisdom Neri. You'll never guess what happens next. Back to the Temple of the Ocean King. How do they do it? Your new bombs and a shovel that you picked up along the way make your escapades go by a little quicker. With the Spirit of Wisdom at your side, you can get a little further in. There's some new enemies here, phantom eyes that kinda do what they say on the tin. If they spot you, they alert the phantoms to your position. You can stun them with the boomerang and get them with your sword though, so they're more of a nuisance than anything. Solve a few more puzzles, including drawing the shape of an hourglass on a door. How do they do it? And come up to this tablet. Something interesting that I found out when I was researching the general consensus on this game was that this specific moment was a jumping off point for some people. It's a pretty unique puzzle with quite a simple answer when you know the solution to it, but it's not explicitly direct. See, interacting with the tablet tells you to press the sacred crest against the sea chart to transfer it, which will then allow the holder of the Sun Key to get into the Temple of Courage. That second half is all mumbo jumbo. We want to focus on the part that talks about pressing one thing against another. The Sacred Crest is on a flipped version of the southwestern sea chart, and pressing them together isn't exactly possible. The sea chart is on the bottom screen and the crest is on the top screen. For anyone that doesn't know, only the bottom screen of the DS was a touchscreen, so you couldn't just drag it from one screen to another. I genuinely don't remember how I worked it out because it was so long ago that I played this for the first time, but apparently this stumped a lot of people. How do I solve this? It caused some people to even give up on the game entirely and never return to it. I give up. This was really cool in my opinion. You had to physically press the two screens together by closing the DS and reopening it. I'm a sucker for when a game takes advantage of the platform it's on. The crest is in the middle of the sea, which, after getting a letter from the guy that lives on Cannon Island about a new salvage arm he's developed, means that the Sun Key is sunken. See what I did there? Stop it. One detour to Cannon Island later, Edo asks you how badly you want the salvage arm. This is another one where you have to use the DS's microphone to convince Edo that you should be the one to take the salvage arm with you. The salvage arm is a cute little minigame that, stay with me here, weirdly reminded me of Aqua Grabber from Club Penguin. Although Aqua Grabber came out after Phantom Hourglass, so you know what, never mind. Guide the salvage arm to the seafloor, avoiding octomines and rocks, grab your treasure, haul it back up. It's simple, but effective. Grab the Sun Key, blow up a big sea monster, dock at Melita Island. Go to the Temple of Courage, get the bow, shoot some ice, fight another boss, get more magic sand, and obtain the Spirit of Courage, who is all weird and floaty and doesn't speak and looks just like Ciela. Interesting. Weirdly, when going back to Linebeck, Oshus is there, somehow. He doesn't have a boat, but somehow he's there with you. He wants to tell Ciela something important. He says that she is no ordinary fairy, but instead a spirit. One half of the Spirit of Courage, with the weird fairy you just rescued making up the other half. Oshus fuses them together, I think, and out pops Ciela again, but this time she's yellow. All three spirits join forces and hear Tetra's voice. They tell you that they can now track down the ghost ship, so I mean, go and do that, right? But what about the old man's tragic, drawn-out backstory? Yeah, fair. That is something that was on my mind. He says he'll explain when the time is right, so whatever. Linebeck, eager to get his hands on the ghost ship's loot, gets you to set sail and head after the ghost ship. Finally, we can rescue Tetra. But what about Linebeck's ex-girlfriend? What? Before you can even get 2 seconds away from Melita Island, a strange woman calls out over the sea towards your ship and ambushes you. This is Jolene, and she has a huge vendetta against Linebeck. While it's never explicitly confirmed that they're ex-partners, it's slowly revealed over the course of the game that they did have some kind of relationship in the past before Linebeck bolted with a haul of her treasure. She boards the ship, you fight her in a pretty easy duel, and then she runs off. This happens a few times over your adventure, and Linebeck rewards you with a small handful of rupees each time. It's nothing major, but it does flesh out the world a little more, and you learn a smidge more about Linebeck each time. Anyway, time to chase after the ghost ship. Linebeck drives the ship forward through the thick fog, and you're in charge of steering. The three spirits serve as your GPS, basically, as you get closer and closer to it. Once you get close enough, you can board. The ghost ship ends up being its own little dungeon, which is pretty neat. Tetra is nowhere to be seen, but this little girl asks you for help rescuing her sisters in exchange for info on where Tetra might be held hostage. She says that they are the Fallen, which on a big spooky ghost ship is probably nothing, right? This section is one of the weaker parts of the game, but it's still not bad. You have to find each girl and then escort them back to the first sister. Skulltulas will fall from the ceiling, causing them to scream pretty loudly and stop dead in their tracks. Unique to this dungeon are the Reaplings, which are basically reskinned phantoms, which you can stun by shooting an arrow into their back. If one of the sisters runs into a spider while the Reaplings are patrolling, the screen will alert them to you and you have to book it to a safe zone. It gets kinda old kinda quickly. Once you save all of them, they reveal that they're actually evil! What? The sisters are actually evil demons and trap you into a match of Dead Man's Volley, which is just like tennis, I guess. It's simple enough. After beating them, you get a key and you find Tetra, who is a statue. Oshus shows up and explains that Tetra's life force has been taken. But what about the old man's tragic, drawn-out backstory? We're getting there! Oshus reveals the truth. The seas we are sailing are his domain. He is, in fact, the Ocean King. What? He tells his story. An evil monster named Bellum leached most of the life force from Oshus, dragging him to the depths of the Temple of the Ocean King. Using his life force, Bellum created all of the monsters that we've fought up to now, imprisoning the spirits of power and wisdom and like half of the spirit of courage, I don't know. Using his last ounce of strength, the Ocean King cloned himself, putting his remaining essence into the form of Oshus, and bided his time. The only purpose of Bellum, and by extension his monsters and the ghost ship, is to drain people's life force. In the case of the ghost ship, they used a story of treasure to lure people in. Linebeck's a little unhappy at this. The treasure he so desperately wanted was never real to begin with. Oshus tells Link that if he can defeat Bellum before all of the Ocean King's strength is depleted, he can restore Tetra and bring her back to life. We're on our own though, cause Linebeck quits. No treasure, no Linebeck. Priorities. For seeing this though, Oshus promises Linebeck that if he helps the gang defeat Bellum, he will grant him one wish. And with that, he has a sort of change of heart. With that, we begin the second half of Phantom Hourglass. It's pretty straightforward compared to collecting all the spirits, so you'll forgive me if this is a little abridged. With Tetra acting as a modern art installation on your ship, you set off to work out how to defeat Bellum. Stop at Zor's island and he talks to you about the Phantom Sword, the one sword that can defeat Bellum. What about the Master Sword? Well, seeing as this is a sequel to the Wind Waker, the Master Sword is at the bottom of the ocean, lodged in Ganondorf's big ol' noggin. So, the Master Sword was so good, we're gonna build the Master Sword 2! In order to forge the Phantom Sword, we need 3 pure metals: Crimsonine, Azurine, and Aquanine. They're the sacred treasures of the 3 tribes that live in the northeastern and southeastern seas, which we haven't been able to get to until now. Back to the Temple of the Ocean King, you can grab the next sea chart, and if you're feeling brave and have enough minutes left in the hourglass, you can grab both sea charts in one trip, eliminating the need to go back another time. Or you can just play it normally, I don't know. There are some new Phantom variants in these deeper floors that move quicker and can teleport, but it still doesn't feel overly busted or unfair. The 3 pure metals are the property of the Gorons, the Anuki, and the now lost Cobble Kingdom. It's pretty much the same thing each time. Get to their island, solve some problems for the locals, jump into the temple, beat the boss, and get the medal. The Goron temple is cool because you can swap between playing as Link and playing as a young Goron named Gon-Goron. The Temple of Ice has a neat gimmick with its dungeon item, and Muto's temple, where you get the 3rd pure metal, has a really memorable boss fight where you smash apart this huge hulking contraption with a big hammer. Once you have all the metals, return to Zor's and he'll begin to forge the Sacred Blade. Kill some time by fighting Jolene, and when you return, the blade has been forged, but to complete it, the Ocean King must fuse it with the Phantom Hourglass. So run along, go do that, and Oshus combines the two to form the sacred Phantom Sword. Now what you gotta do is head back to the Temple of the Ocean King to kick Bellum's ass. Look, okay, I get it. It's a little annoying to keep going back to this goddamn temple, but the final run through is different, I think. Armed with the Phantom Sword, it feels almost like a victory lap of sorts. By the way, what's Stockholm Syndrome? With the power of the Phantom Sword, you can now kill the previously invulnerable phantoms by striking them in the back. Previously, you could stun them by hitting their back with an arrow or tricking them into falling through trapdoors, but on this run-through, you can just straight up take them out. It's really cool. You also get a reward if you take out all the phantoms on a floor, which is nice. Once you're at the very bottom of the Temple of the Ocean King, it's time for you to face off against the source of all of your problems, Bellum, the evil phantom. It's a cool boss fight, honestly, making use of both screens of the DS and a good chunk of your arsenal. Pull him over to you with a grappling hook, shoot his tentacle thingies with arrows, and keep on walloping until he spits out a big glowy orb that Ciela absorbs, causing her to see a vision of Oshus. If I had $1 for every time I've talked about a video game where someone takes a psychedelic in the last few weeks, I'd have $2. which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice. Oshus tells Ciela that when Bellum attacked her and split her in two, it also came at the cost of her memories, which coincidentally is what the funny glowy orb was. Ciela, as it turns out, isn't just the spirit of courage, but in fact, the spirit of time and courage. With her newly regained powers, she can lob a phantom sphere at you, which gives you the power to stop time, as long as you can draw a figure eight, which I apparently struggled with a lot. Come on. Might have been a skill issue, but this was pretty janky for me. Eventually though, you do end up making something that vaguely resembles the shape of an 8, and time does stop, allowing you to get more hits in on Bellum's big old googly eye. After enough walloping, you get him. He falls into the water and Link and Ciela are teleported out of the crumbling temple, narrowly avoiding being crushed. Back on Linebeck's ship, Tetra seems to be recovering. Thanks to the regained power of the Ocean King, she is brought back to life, and the day is saved. For a couple of minutes until Bellum's big old tentacles grab Tetra and steal her away again. Come on, man, can't a guy get a break? Rushing out, we can see the ghost ship has returned, and Bellum has once again taken Tetra hostage aboard it. The ensuing naval battle between your ship and the ghost ship is pretty simple mechanically, but for an early DS title, it's a pretty cool set piece. Deal enough damage to it, and you can board the wreckage for the final showdown. Bellum knocks over the ghost ship's mast, crushing Linebeck's ship and Oshus in the process. With the distraction, he ensnares Link, causing him to drop the Phantom Sword. Bellum taunts his prey, knowing that Linebeck would be too afraid to do anything. Link wakes up to see Linebeck defending him and Tetra. Running back to Link, Bellum grabs on and Linebeck throws the Phantom Sword back to Link. Bellum ensnares Linebeck more and uses his evil power, I guess, to possess Linebeck, turning him into a phantom, the final boss of the game, Bellumbeck. I really dig the final fight. It's pretty simple mechanically, but the fact that it's one of the companions that's been with you for the whole journey is super cool. The stakes here feel personal. Bellum is basically desperate at this point. Linebeck's ship is gone, Oshus is maybe dead, it's just you and him. Ciela gets ensnared in one of his tentacles, but puts a rear view of Bellumbeck on the top screen. With this, you can see when his eye is open, using Ciela's phantom spheres to stop time and get around to deal some damage, just as long as you can draw what the game deems to be a figure eight. Come on! Rinse and repeat this process a few times and he goes down. There's no hidden second phase or anything, Bellum just freezes up and explodes into magic sand exactly the same as the other bosses. It's a little anticlimactic, honestly, but I actually think it works in the game's favor. The whole final battle feels weirdly small in scale compared to a lot of other Zelda games, and yet that's not a bad thing. Linebeck apologizes, remembers that his ship and Oshus are gone, and a strange whale call breaks the silence. Energy from the Phantom Sword shoots upwards and scatters among the ocean. Suddenly, a gorgeous white whale leaps from the sea, revealing himself to be Oshus. He's okay, and he's back to his true form as the Ocean King. He thanks everyone for their efforts and offers to make good on his promise to Linebeck. It seems like the perfect time for him to ask for a mountain of treasure to make up for the ordeal that he's just put himself through, but instead he asks for his ship back. There's a lesson somewhere in there. The Ocean King goes on to say that the ghost ship will no longer haunt Link and Tetra's world, confirming that the realm of the Ocean King is another world, so that's cool, I think. The three spirits, Ciela included, can't come with you. They have to stay and serve the Ocean King. They bid their farewells, Ciela and Link have a touching goodbye, and the game ends. Like I said before, Phantom Hourglass is a special one to me. It was my first Zelda, and while I didn't know it was a sequel to an older game at the time, I still loved it. And revisiting it now, especially after seeing people's more negative sentiments about the game, just reinforces to me that it ain't that bad. Of course there are issues though. The touchscreen controls, while I personally didn't take issue with it, can be a huge barrier of entry from an accessibility standpoint, and the Temple of the Ocean King could probably have done with one or two less revisits, but that doesn't invalidate the game. It's a small stakes Zelda adventure for a handheld system that I think is unexpectedly sweet through all the weirdness. You even have a really heartwarming post-credit scene with Link and Zelda waking up moments after they climbed aboard the ghost ship at the start of the game, confirming that yes, they were indeed in another world, and are now back in their own. There's some banter with the pirate crew, but something else catches Link's attention. The ghost ship is gone, the Phantom Hourglass is empty, and off in the distance, we see Linebeck's ship, restored and heading out towards the horizon, ready for a new adventure. Did you just say a new venture? The theme song of Sonic Rush Adventure? Wowie zowie, these games are more alike than I thought.
La la.